masters.
Good day to you, partner. I'm Guy, and I can already tell that I'll be your best friend in this forsaken cave.
Hey guys, Wheat Solo here, aka the Skeleton King. So this is our continuation of Landis's Immortal, Jack of all trades, Necromancer. The boots are pretty meh, but strength and dexterity is fine. But everything else on this mercenary is pretty legit. The negative target defense is really important because this mercenary has one job. It's to use Pus Spitter to proc lore resist. And it's a very nice lore resist, which basically allows him to kill, like, just ludicrous amounts of HP modified enemies with one shot. The other gear is still good. High defense shaft stop, very solid. As you'll notice, he does have a 3-socket bone flame. Wow, those are ridiculously solid boots. It's a ridiculously solid belt. But one thing I want to mention, I'm assuming the Bolcathos has MF because there was just no other core needed. As you'll notice, he actually has 100 CDR from his gear. He does not have a Plague Iron Golem in the last video, nor does he have one now. But I do want to finish one thing. If you are going to try to make a Necromancer in this direction, Indestructible is actually one of the best corruptions in the game. The amount of defense added from Indestructible, it's like 50%, right? It's basically the ethereal roll. There's no way to replicate that. So if you're trying to make a high defense character, basically Indestructible is the best corruption, unless of course you need max sockets or CDR, etc. Like if you're trying to hit one of your breakpoints, guys, you still need to use those corruptions. But if you have a spare corruption, then Indestructible on your chest piece is going to be a... Like, it's no longer, oh, it cored Indestructible. It's, oh, that's my BIS core. That's my best in slot at this point. I don't know, maybe a +1 skill would still be pretty sick, but for this build, maybe it'd be worse. It'd be hard to turn that down, wouldn't it? Okay, so let's finish off the Merc. The Merc is there to attack with Pus Spitter and cast Lore Resist. And as you can see, she actually cast it really, really consistently. So like some of the other corruptions on the gear is IAS or minus target defense, because you basically never want her to miss, and you want her to attack as fast as possible. I put up the IAS table. Yeah, it's pretty simple. It's like 156 for the max breakpoint, and he did hit it. Now, I'll bring this up real quickly because I believe there has been confusion in NecroChat about just exactly how crossbows work for mercenaries. It just goes off the base weapon speed. So whatever the base weapon speed is, she'll just need 156 basically to hit that point. The strafe animation, we're not sure, but Toadflax brought this up. But we're just assuming, or I'm assuming, if you have 156 IAS, that she's going to have the fastest strafe possible. I would just assume you go off of the Amazon IAS tables, but I guess we don't know that for sure. Probably there's some way you could actually check that. So if someone actually does know how strafe works for off-class or rogue, that would be really interesting. I always assumed you just had the max breakpoint, but I guess why would that necessarily be true? Maybe you just go off of the Amazon IAS table at that point. I don't know. When games do things like this, sometimes they have strange solutions that are generally like the easiest possible. Like a game will just pull the quickest resource possible to fix a certain situation. It's always kind of interesting when speedrunners use that to their advantage to completely break a game, because the game will just pull like the nearest, easiest resource they can. Well, let's get back to the video. So we explained the mercenary. Vigor has very little applicable use for any necromancer who has max blood warp. Sure, a summoner, but We're not relying on summons. The blood golems will maybe get to their target a little bit quicker, so that's cute. But basically, she's just for the pus spitter and then not dying. Now, the iron golem from the last video, let's get to that because we can talk about this iron golem. It's a Defiance iron golem. Interestingly enough, Landis has had a couple of issues with his iron golem dying. Not in regular mapping, but if he's trying to attack one of the tougher map bosses, well, especially for melee characters, like the River of Blood boss is, hits pretty hard, things like that, then the iron golem can die with Defiance. But in any other situation, the iron golem will never die. Now, he is running 20 GM. That is important to note. Because if you're running 1-1, I've not had much trouble with my iron golems dying if I'm 1-1. But they can die. But basically with 21, he says they never die unless he's trying to have them face tank a boss. Now, it's a Defiance iron golem, right? So it just gives everybody more defense. As you can just look at the ticker down there, his bone armor was like 1,400. He refreshed it, and it goes down incredibly slowly. His health goes down literally because of blood warp, guys. Like, I don't know how much actually even elemental damage he's taking at this point. You can look at his statistics. Like, it's been like 5 seconds, and oh, his bone armor is finally about to run out. So there you go. That's how good it is. Pretty insane, right? He doesn't have to worry about FHR. In fact, I think if he wanted to, he could just have more life, which would have some effect, right? In case there's any elemental damage or something like that. I think maybe more life would be better, but either option is fine with this build to go more FHR, more life. Neither is going to do much, and both have a downside and an upside. The downside for more life would be your blood warp does cost more life, which it's like, do you actually have more life? Because if it goes down quicker due to blood warp, then you kind of don't. So you kind of get what I'm saying. Now, the iron golem from the last video, now it's a Defiance iron golem, right? Was actually a Stormspire iron golem. So I apologize. It was not a Plague iron golem. And there's one cool thing about the Stormspire iron golem is that it casts Static Shock. And it actually casts Static Shock. As you can see in that video, it casted it enough to be noticeable, right? So that's pretty cute, actually. So it actually was helping reduce the health of certain mobs. It's probably not worth it to use, but I definitely could see, like, maybe you have some sort of budget necromancer. Probably Poison No would be the only applicable. I guess a summoner could run one. Basically, keep it in the back of your head, guys. If you ever have a new character and you're kind of budget and you want your iron golem to help you out a little more, Stormspires seems to be a legit option just to have a little bit of AoE damage. And he attacks like once a second, right? So it's not terrible. Maybe once every few packs they die a little bit quicker. That sounds pretty cool to me. But the reason why it wasn't a Plague Iron Golem is because if you're trying to make a curse immune character, relying on a Plague Iron Golem is basically pointless / it's just impossible. Now, having a higher poison length reduction is really, really good. But the reason why you can't use a Plague Iron Golem to be curse immune is because it's multiplicative, not additive. So if you have 50% CD on your character and then your Plague Iron Golem gives you 50%, you'd only be at 75%. If you extrapolate that further, let's say you have like 90% curse immunity and then a 50% Iron Golem, you'd be at 95%. I believe the Plague Iron Golem can give you about 66% curse reduction. I believe it's somewhere around there, maybe it's 60%. So it's really solid, but again, you would never actually be curse immune. And yes, having 98% is better than 50%, but the reason why characters want to be completely curse immune is because, not just because it means you never get a tiny bit of damage, it's because if you're casting and you're decrepit, the decrepify actually changes the animation speed, and it actually throws off not only your rhythm, but because blood warp can cancel other casts, it can actually mess up like everything you're trying to accomplish, basically. So basically you'll miss one cast of poison nova damage, blood warp sooner, etc. Well, guys, that's about it. Skelly King out.
Come
GG.
play with us. Come and play with us, Daddy.